Well, there are three committees with divisions of their own, right? Finance, land use, and oversight and investigation. So we have built a division of professional investigators, right? Some of our investigators come from the FBI, some of them from the Department of Financial Services at the state level, some of them from the Financial Intelligence Unit at the Manhattan DA's office. And our objective is to make government work for everyday people, to make it more transparent, to make it more accountable, because we're concerned that bureaucracies over time can become arrogant, can become unaccountable, and forget the constituents they serve. And obviously one of our primary focal points has been the New York City Housing Authority. So back in the winter, we came to notice there were thousands of tenants who were losing heat and hot water. You know, I heard one story where a senior citizen was so cold in her apartment that she left her oven on, risking death from exposure to carbon monoxide. Yet despite what we were hearing on the ground, NYCHA publicly said that 97% of the apartments had consistent heat and hot water. And we knew anecdotally that what NYCHA was reporting to the public bore no relation to the reality that we were experiencing on the ground. So we decided for the first time in recent memory to conduct our own investigation. We demanded access to NYCHA's database under the threat of subpoena. We do have subpoena power. And we came to discover that there were 343,000 residents who at various points in the heating season lost heat and hot water. Right? The loss of heat and hot water among 343,000 residents, which is a population larger than that of most cities, is a humanitarian crisis. It's a state of emergency. And that's something we would have never found out were it not for the fact that we conducted our own investigation. You know, the most important role that the City Council plays is oversight. We oversee the day-to-day operations of city agencies. But one of the inherent problems with City Council oversight is that we depend for information on the very agencies we oversee, and those agencies have an incentive to present an alternative version of reality. And so the point of oversight and investigations, the point of my committee, is to establish an independent base of information, is to get to the truth, is to cut through the propaganda that we hear from the administration. And we have been focusing like a laser on agencies like the New York City Housing Authority. We just announced that we're opening an investigation into the Business Integrity Commission because of abuse and systemic corruption in the commercial trade waste business, which historically has been plagued by the mafia. And a few months ago, in partnership with Housing Rights Initiative, my office found that Kushner Companies has a pattern of lying to the city of New York. Right? Our preliminary investigation uncovered more than 80 falsified building permits across 34 properties in the span of 4 years. And the falsification of building permits is not merely about bureaucratic paperwork. It poses a profound threat to the affordability of rent-regulated units, which is the largest source of affordable housing in New York City. And it poses a profound threat to the safety of residents living in those units during construction. You know, Kushner was engaged in a practice that I call the weaponization of construction. Right? It's the use of illegal construction to harass tenants out of their homes and deregulate affordable housing units out of existence.
As you're talking about, I have a million questions I want to ask. In terms of NYCHA, you guys have also looked into this whole lead paint fiasco, and now your staff just sent me a letter that you sent concerning the appointment of the chief compliance officer that has been appointed pursuant to a consent decree that arose out of the lead paint situation. So what's going on there? What is de Blasio doing that has you're basically calling on the U.S. Attorney to kick the person out of office?
Well, I think the common, whether it's, here's what we know. We know that NYCHA has misled the public about the number of heat and hot water outages in public housing. It has misled the public about the true size of the backlog maintenance. Right? There have been reports of forging tenant signatures and fudging numbers. It has misled the public about lead safety inspections. And at the heart of it is a failure to comply with federal, state, and local law. And so the U.S. Attorney forced the City of New York to enter into a consent decree. And part of that consent decree is appointing a chief compliance officer who will ensure that the housing authority is following the law. And the consent decree is clear that the chief compliance officer has to be selected in conjunction with the federal monitor. Right? Before a federal monitor was even selected, much less approved, NYCHA took it upon itself to appoint a chief compliance officer and appointed a patronage figure who has no qualifications to handle regulatory compliance in a multi-billion-dollar agency bound by a maze of local, state, and federal laws.
So what do you think leads to this?
I think it's a lack of concern for public housing. The people who live in public housing.
A lack of concern by de Blasio?
From de Blasio, from the political establishment, it is structural racism. Right? There's a lack of concern for poor people of color who live in public housing. One of the models of our time is Black Lives Matter. Nowhere will you find a greater devaluation of black and brown life than in public housing. Right? Public housing has been so savagely starved of funding at every level of government that it has come to accumulate $32 billion worth of capital needs. That in order to repair and replace every system that requires repair and replacement, you would have to invest $32 billion. That's the depth of neglect and federal disinvestment in public housing.
So
I see it as structural racism at work.
I understand that on the federal level, although it certainly didn't get dealt with.
I think it's true. I think it permeates every level of government.
I was going to say it didn't get dealt with under the Obama administration.
Not at all.
And it got worse under the Bush administration.
The crisis transcends each administration. What is particularly disappointing about the de Blasio administration is that he ran on a tale of combating the tale of two cities. He ran on a platform of combating the tale of two cities. He ran on a platform of forging the fairest city in America. You cannot have the fairest city in America when 343,000 of your poorest residents cannot even have access to the basic necessities of life, like heat and hot water. When you have children who are poisoned by lead paint and whose ability to succeed academically in school or climb the economic ladder has been crippled by their exposure to poison in their own apartments. So there's no appreciation for the conditions in public housing as a humanitarian crisis.